Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. This is the 10th anniversary of David and myself talking together. We talked at Amiga 30th here in Neuss, and this is the first time since that date that we've again talked together. In the 92 to 95, we were joint managing directors of Commodore UK, and that was Commodore, Middle East, and Africa. So we actually did have sales in Africa at the time. David took care of sales and marketing and building his famous packs, and I took care of the back end of the business, the finance and accounting. So this is not a technical presentation. This is a presentation of some stories of the business. Because one of the questions we get asked regularly is, why did Commodore go bust? And the answer to that, there's lots of answers to that, but I'm going to tell you a story that typifies what was happening at Commodore. And when I've run through a couple of stories, David is going to talk about his Commodore experience and the new Commodore that's recently arisen, which is, again, what we are both involved in as the new Commodore project. So back in 1993, Commodore International had announced that they were in difficulty financially. And that meant there was a potential of insolvency of Commodore going bankrupt and Commodore UK going bankrupt. I was the legal director, the only legal director of Commodore UK at that time. And under UK law, I was personally responsible to the creditors of Commodore UK for any decision that Commodore made. And if we made bad decisions, I could be personally sued by creditors. Now, in 1992, Medi had done a deal with SCI, the manufacturing company, to make Amiga 1200s in Scotland. So all our Amigas in 1992 came from SCI. We had a successful year. We sold something like 400,000 machines, and Medi didn't pay the bill. So Commodore owed SCI $8 million by the end of 92, and Medi wanted SCI to build machines for Christmas 1993. So he did a deal with SCI that said, you build machines, we'll ship them to the UK will pay you the price of the machines plus $50 off the debt for every machine they sell. That way they sell 400,000 machines again, you'll get your $8 million back. And one day this contract arrived on my desk, a contract between Commodore International and SCI. So where we were going to send them money. I immediately sent it to my lawyers and said, this is disastrous. How can we pay an extra $50 when we, Commodore UK, don't owe that money? My lawyer said, don't worry about it. Commodore UK is not a party to this agreement. You're not bound by it. It's only with Commodore International and SCI. So we come to the Christmas season. We start selling machines, and I start sending money to SCI, counting my debt, which is only the value of the machines. Everything was going well for about a month, and I got a call from Media and said, I need you to send $500,000 to New York. I said, if I do that, we can't pay SCI. Don't worry about SCI, that's my problem. So I send the money to Commodore, I write it off my debt, and we come to the day where we owe nothing to anybody in Commodore or SCI because we've paid for all the machines we bought. So out of courtesy, I call SCI and say, we're not going to send you any more money because we don't have any more debt. SCI said, you can't do that, that's illegal. That Sunday, I got a call from Mehdi Ali, and the chairman of SCI, and said, you've got to pay SCI more money. I said, I can't pay more money because the money belongs to the UK creditors. I don't owe anything. We're not paying any more. It would be illegal for me to pay. So Mehdi, being Mehdi, said, find a way to make it legal. So I said, if you can find a lawyer in the UK who's reputable, who will explain a way to make this legal, I'll do it, but until then, I'm not moving. The upshot was, 6 months later, SCI sued Commodore International, Commodore UK, and me personally for $6.5 million. We go to the High Court in the Strand, where the judge is wearing a wig, the barristers are wearing wigs, very formal. The first witness was the chairman of SCI. He came on the stand and ranted for an hour and a half about how Mehdi was a liar and a cheat. Everybody in Commodore were liars and cheats. Couldn't stand up to any agreement, and it was terrible. After he'd finished ranting for an hour and a half, our barrister stood up, held up the agreement between Commodore International and Commodore UK and said, do you recognize this agreement? I said, yes, it's my contract with Commodore. Is that your signature on the last page? Yes, it's my signature. Did you read it before you signed it? He said, well, no, I relied on my general counsel. I didn't read it. Thank you, no more questions. The general counsel gets up on the stand, rants for another hour about how terrible Commodore is, and we're all liars and cheats. Comes to our barrister, holds up the contract. Do you recognize this document? Yes. And you asked your chairman to sign it? Yes. Did you read it before you asked him to sign it? Well, no, I was concentrating on our annual general meeting. I relied on the finance guy. Next man up, the finance guy comes up. Do you recognize, same rant and rave, do you recognize this document? Oh, I've never seen it before. It's not the document I negotiated with Commodore. Well, what do you think happened to the document you negotiated with Commodore? I don't know. I went on vacation, and when I came back, it was signed. Witnesses. Commodore's general counsel got up. Do you recognize this? Yes, it's a document that I negotiated with SCI. And Commodore UK is not a party to this agreement. No, we didn't want UK to this agreement. No more questions. At lunchtime, on this is the third day, at lunchtime, their barrister came to our barrister. What will it take to get out of this lawsuit? And we wanted to work with SCI, as we were still trying to buy Commodore at that time, so I just said, cover our costs and we'll be good. So business can fall apart really easily. And that was an example. $6.5 million disappeared from SCI because Commodore were being cute in the way they structured that agreement. But I can't say it was ethical, but it was what happened. Yes. So one of my favorite perks of running Commodore was we were shirt sponsors for Chelsea Football Club. So I became a vice president of Chelsea for 2 seasons, the 93-94 and 94-95 seasons. Now in 93-94, Chelsea had a good year. They were third in the table, I believe, and they got to the semi-final of the FA Cup. And in the sponsorship contracts, there are win bonuses. If they win the Premiership, it's $1 million. If they win the FA Cup, it's $1 million. And if they do slightly less well, it's a lower amount, but it's up to $3 million of exposure. So what do you do as a sponsor? You go to Lloyd's of London and get insurance cover to insure you against paying out in the event that Chelsea do well. Now, Lloyd's being insurance brokers, they base the cost of insurance on the history, and in 93, Chelsea did well, so they tripled our premium from £120,000 to £360,000, that was a lot of money. So then you do a calculation. There is an alternative to Lloyd's of London. It's a bookmaker like Ladbrokes. So we calculated the odds of Chelsea winning the final, winning the semi, all the things that we had to cover, And I worked out that we could cover that for £140,000 as opposed to the £360,000 insurance. Now, the thing is about a bookmaker is you can't just walk in and say, I'm betting £160,000 on Chelsea to do these things, because they would immediately change the odds. So we hired a team of consultants who, 60 of them, at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, walked into 60 different bookmakers across the country and all placed £3,000 on Chelsea, covering our odds. By the next morning, the odds of Chelsea winning the FA Cup had gone from 14 to 1 to 3 to 1. So if you see a big shift in the odds of a team doing well, it's not necessarily because the bookmakers think anything's changed, it's just that the shirt sponsor has covered their bets.
Okay. Okay, my turn. And boy, have things changed in the last few months. It's just incredible. Anyway, what I'm going to do, a lot of you know my history, a lot of you don't. So if you don't mind, I'm going to very quickly go through my history with the old Commodore. And then I'm going to talk very briefly about the new Commodore. So let's get started. But listen, I'll just talk you through it, guys. I'm sorry about this. It was all set up and I don't know what's happened. Anyway, I'll just give you a very quick overview of my background with Commodore. Yeah, I joined Commodore in June of 1983, and I was recruited, hello Robert, I was recruited as a salesman to introduce the Commodore PET into the retail market. Now, I'd only been with Commodore a few weeks when I realized that, to be honest, I believed that Commodore would ultimately go bankrupt. Why? Because they clearly had no business plan. Because within a few weeks of me joining them in that specific role to sell pets to the retail market, they announced that they were not going to make any more pets. So I'd been recruited for no reason whatsoever, which could have meant the end of my career with Commodore. But luckily for me, the consumer, which had the VIC-20 and had not long recently opened, launched in 64, it had a sales manager and a key accounts manager who looked at, the key accounts manager looked after all the big retail stores, and he decided to leave. So I was moved into that role. Anyway, the thing that I did that changed the face of computing really, is I came up with the concept of, from now on, we don't sell computers, we sell dreams. Looks like it's up. So the idea of selling dreams was that if you try to market a computer, all it is a piece of plastic with some keys on it. And it's very, very difficult to market that in any meaningful way. So I came up with a concept of bundling, with putting lots of good games in it, always making sure that we had some productivity software in there, word processing and art packages, so that the parent could justify the purchase, because we all know that the kids wanted to play the games, but if you could say, I'm buying this for my son's education or my daughter's education. So I came up with that concept. And over the years, we kept the 64 alive with different packs. We did 2 packs a year, actually. It's just an examples of the packs. I'm going to click through this very quickly, just so you can get the concept. Okay, for example, this pack here, the Connoisseur Collection, I think we were the first computer that had a mouse in it. We had a product called Neos Mouse and Cheese, which was an art package. And so that was an example of the things that we did then. In August of '84, Commodore bought the Amiga company and product. The core team, design team, people like Jay Minor, RIP, R.J. Michael, who's here today, Dale Luck, who's here today, and Several other people who were part of the design team are actually here today, and I'm sure they'll be glad to chat with you. First product we launched, as you probably know, was the Amiga 1000. Then in 1989 we launched the Amiga 500, which was the first time that we had a product which was competitive and had superb technical advantages. And our only competition actually then was the 520 ST from Atari. Now, in September, I launched this product called the Batman Pack. Basically what I did was I went to Ocean Software, who had just come back from Hollywood and having just paid $1 million just for the right to use the name Batman the Pack. Batman the movie, sorry. So I said to them, look guys, I want you to give me that product for 2 months, so you can't buy it over the counter, you can only get it in the pack. I want to pay you very little for it, and I only want to commit to 10,000 pieces. So they talked amongst themselves, and in the end, I persuaded them to go with it, which was pretty brave of them. We sold 186,000 of those packs in 12 weeks. It was a massive success. Now, the only reason I'm mentioning that is because I then went to Mehdi Ali, who was the president of the Commodore, and said, this is how you market and sell the product. Let's spread this idea across Europe. And he refused to do it. So we were then forced into launching the CD32, which we did in 1993. And we launched that at the Science Museum. We used a TV presenter called Chris Evans, who was a really up-and-coming TV presenter at the time, to co-launch the machine. Very slow to sew. Anyway, just before the launch, now this is really, really important. Just before the launch, there was an interview, previous interview in PC Week with Tom Kalinske, who was the worldwide president of Sega, and the journalist said to him, "What about 16-bit CD-based consoles?" And he said, "Sorry, 32." But he said it can't be done. If anybody could do it, it would be Sega. So and that was all in print. So I thought this is too good an opportunity, knowing that we were launching within a few weeks. It should work. I hope this works. At that time, Sega's advertising, quite clever, terrible advert, but quite clever advertising, was to be this good takes ages, to be this good takes spin the word round Sega. I'm going to skip that. So we thought that was too good an opportunity to miss, so we did that. And if you notice, it's right outside Sega's head office. Because I was able to say it, because Sega themselves had said it. To be this good will take Sega ages. We also did that after Sega's new baby, Amiga brings you the mother. Okay. Now, after that, very quickly after that, Commodore went bankrupt. And in 2015, I was invited to be a speaker at the Amsterdam Amiga 30 celebration, which, and I've been out of the industry completely for all those years. Sorry. Anyway, it's a curveball I did not expect. So if it's going to, for some reason these videos don't want to run. I don't know what's wrong. Sorry. Should close that down. Anyway, so let's talk about the new Commodore. Quite an interesting story actually, because The guy who led the whole resurgence and buying back Commodore is a guy called Perry Blackwick. His real name is Christian Simpson. Anyway, I never knew of him. I'd not met him, or I didn't even know about him. And he sent me a message and said, can we have a video conference? And I said, yeah, sure, not knowing anything what he was talking about. So on this conference, he said, David, he said, we're in the process of buying Commodore back. Would you give us the honor of endorsing us? And I said, no. He said, he fell off the chair. Why are you saying no? I said, I'm not going to endorse you. I want in. You cannot have a new Commodore if I'm not involved, because I am Commodore through and through. 12.5 years with Commodore, the most successful division of the company, and I work for Commodore in America and in Switzerland. Anyway, long story short, I am now involved, very much so, with Commodore. It went between different things, but my role now has been finally decided, and I'm the brand ambassador for Commodore, which means I can come to events like this, as I do all the time anyway, and get paid for it, which is rather nice. The other thing too is that I think the most important message about Commodore is that Commodore is that for the very first time is in the hands of people who care. Now, I know a lot of people are going to ask about new projects and things. Seriously, guys, I can't talk about what we are planning to do next year because there's a lot of things happening, a lot of good things happening. As you probably know, we launched 3 updated versions of the C64, the 64 Ultimate. We've sold in excess of 11,000 of them already. And I have to tell you, there isn't a day goes by when I don't get messages on my Facebook from people I barely know saying, we've just heard Commodore's back, we've just heard that you're involved, is there anything we can do to help? And it's coming in drones, day after day after day. And in this event today, there are many, many people who are involved in the new Commodore, including, for example, Leonard Tramiel, who up until this time, heard anything anybody wanted to do with Commodore, he's been very negative about it. But he is actually now involved with our Commodore, and we asked him what title he wants to be, and he said CTO, which we already got a CTO. He said Chief Tramiel Officer, which is quite funny, I think, in a way. Anyway, guys, that's really all I want to say. I've got a stall here at the back of the room. If you want to come and talk to me personally, I'm very glad to speak to you. Happy to sell you something. I've got my 4 books on sale and other items and stuff. But anyway, for me, it's been fantastic to be reunited with Colin. Colin is involved in the new company. Thank you and God bless.